We play and call it work.
Hey everybody, Matthew here from MiniWargaming.com, and welcome to this week's Sit and Talk, the show where we sit down and answer your questions about whatever it is you decide to ask us about. We take turns doing this. This week was my turn, so next week will be Josh, assuming that we keep staying on top of this and get these out every single week, which has been difficult with a lot of different things going on. And so you can leave your comments below for Josh for next week. Ask him whatever you want. So, usually about wargaming, but it really can be whatever you want. We decide, of course, if we want to answer them. And I'm just going to jump right into this. You can leave your comments below right here on YouTube, or you can go on our site, leave it there. We'll check both, don't worry. Let's just jump into it. Pelanor. Hey Matthew, hope you are well. I am, thank you. Firstly, congratulations on the new family member. Hope all is good. She is doing great, and her mother is recovering quite splendidly. There's a bit of a cold or flu going through our home right now. Probably not COVID. At least that's what we're hoping. They're all getting tested for it, but other than that, everybody's doing fine. Can I say I have loved your narrative Conquest of Blood. Your campaigns really grip you and keep you wanting more. Well, thank you. I love making them. It's the way I love to play the game. I've come to realize that over the time I've been playing miniature war games. I've technically been playing them since a teenager, but really been playing them for the past 14 to 15 years. And I thought I was like a tournament competitive player because I always, I'm drawn to that. But I've realized, no, I'm not. I'm a casual narrative style player. I like to play because things look cool. That's what drew me into these games. When I think back to when I was a young teenager or a preteen, I can't remember how old I was, and I got into Battletech, it was the picture of the mech on the box that got me into it. When I think of getting into the Lord of the Rings, that was the first miniature wargame I got into as an adult. It was because I love Lord of the Rings, and I saw armies, and I'm like, that's cool, I want to recreate, I want to make the terrain of the Mines of Moria and all this kind of stuff. Then I went for a little while thinking, oh no, maybe I do want to play games that are more competitive driven. But after doing that for a little bit, I'm like, no, I don't enjoy that. Well, I enjoy winning. I definitely enjoy winning. I'm not trying to say I don't like winning. It's more just like I don't want to win because I've created the most crunchy list that's, found all the perfect combos and all of that. I want to win while having a fun narrative experience. This isn't to knock people who want to be competitive. Everybody has different things that they like, right? And I just realized this is what I like. So narrative campaigns are the perfect outlet for me because it lets me be a dungeon master or a games master, which is my favorite part of the role-playing table, is to be in the hot seat. I enjoy being a player, but I really, really enjoy being a game master. And lets me tell a story. It lets the player get immersed into it. And I've tried my best to hone those skills so that people can really, that the players like Steve or Luca or Josh or Dave or whoever happens to be can really feel like what they're doing is having an effect on the world around them. And that's the key thing that I really like. And the Conquest of Blood was designed that way, to let Luca really have a bearing on what he cared about and how he would shape those realms right around him. So I loved that one. I really loved making that one. The whole thing is out now, by the way. If you are waiting to become a Vault member so you can binge the whole thing through your 7-day trial or whatever, you can go check it out. You can actually get the whole thing for free at miniwargaming.com/conquest. If you sign up for a Vault membership through that link, then even if you cancel, you can still keep watching it. So go check that out. Have you considered using your talents in writing a novel or screenplay? See, now here's a nice thing about being a game master for role-playing games as well as narrative campaigns. I don't have to be super disciplined. And what I mean by that is because I want the players, both in because I DM Dungeons and Dragons as well at home every other week, and for my kids as well. Because you want your players to be able to have a real impact on the world, you can't pre-script everything. You can place the elements, you can create the setting, you can be like, here's the bad guy, here's what he's doing regardless of what you do, and so you can try to make the world feel like it exists outside of the players. But in the end, until you see what they decide and whether or not they accomplish it, because there's a dice mechanic in both role-playing games and in miniature war games, obviously, you can't really decide too much. So it gives you an excuse to only prepare so much. Whereas, obviously, if you write a novel or a screenplay, you determine every last aspect of it. Some of my favorite story elements that have come in my narrative campaigns or in my D&D group have come from things that I did not plan for, things that the players decided to do, or an outcome of a battle report that I had not anticipated. and being like, how do I react to that? I'll give you an example. If you watch the Hunting the Fallen Dark Angel narrative campaign that I did with Steve, which I loved doing that one, and he really enjoyed participating in it, I gave him 2 parts of his force. Like, he created this Dark Angel part, but I also had him rescue some Astra Militarum, or Imperial Guard, if you're speaking in Low Gothic. And he couldn't care less about them. And no matter how much I tried to get him to use it by changing how the mission works or whatever, he just would never bring them. He never really cared about them. And so I decided, I'm like, well, what do I do? Because I have all these missions specifically written for the Imperial Guard to go on. And he just never would do those ones. He showed a disinterest in helping the population, which is actually kind of true to the Dark Angels. And so instead, I threw away 5 or 6 scenarios that I had created. I actually threw them away, didn't reuse them or anything, and thought, okay, so what are the consequences of him ignoring this? So essentially in Hunting the Fallen, a little spoiler alert here, so if you really care about it, just skip like 2 minutes. There's a rebellion going on, and he decides not to help the rebellion, and so part of that rebellion succeeded because he did not intervene, and that actually impacted his ability to progress on his quest as well. And it brought some elements into the game that I had not anticipated, and it created a way better story than what I could have imagined. So when you look at what I do and you think, oh, Matthew's such a good writer, it's a different set of skills, I think, than being a novelist or a screenplay writer. Because in this one, and I do think it's a set of skills, it's not like I'm trying to say, no, I'm not actually a good writer. What I'm trying to say is, it's not so much that those would translate well to writing a novel or a screenplay, it's more developing the skills to be able to understand how to create a setting where a player can then or players can interact with the setting and feel like they have a say and what they do matters, and it becomes their setting just as much as your setting, even though you're doing the majority of the work. And I think that's more the set of skills that I've had to develop over the years, over the 50 plus narrative campaigns that I think that I've done now, and realized what makes a really compelling narrative campaign, both for the player and for you guys as the viewers. And so no. Also, I don't really have interest in writing novels or screenplays, so that kind of plays into it as well. I don't know if I can sit down for the hours and hours and hours it takes to write novels and screenplays. So yeah. So continuing though, and if you did, would you go for classic fantasy, Warhammer world, or sci-fi 40K-ish? That one I don't know, because I find I don't know if I have like... See, I enjoyed the Age of Sigmar. The Conquest of Blood was fun to write. I love Age of Sigmar lore. I love 40K lore. I love post-apocalyptic. I love fantasy. I love sci-fi. I like all these different, we'll call them fantasy genres, because you could group sci-fi and post-apocalyptic and fantasy, where it's like it's not historically accurate or based on like, because you can do historical stuff that's not historically accurate, but what I mean is like where it's a little more fantastic, either because it's magic or because it's science fiction or because it's post-apocalyptic. Those are the genres that I find I really enjoy reading in novels, watching in movies, all that kind of stuff too. Keep up the great work, loving all the content and producers, not forgetting all the team we don't see behind the scenes. Best wishes from sunny Suffolk, UK? Suffolk? I'm not sure. Suffolk, UK? Sorry if I mispronounced that. Thank you, Pellinor. Curtis the Word, or Kurt is the Word. It might be it. Dear Matt, congrats on the baby. Thank you. Hopefully everyone is healthy and doing well. They are, besides the colds and stuff. Question, a friend is starting a Genestealer cult army and is joining our crusade. What units are do's and don'ts in your opinion, and what are tips on the playstyle? Whoa. See, once again, we literally just talked about not being super good at competitive stuff. I haven't touched Genestealer cult for a while because they have a hard time in 9th edition. I know there are ways to make them work. I know right off the top of my head that like Acolytes, of course, are going to be your go-to. The Broodlord is a very powerful HQ unit. Not Broodlord, the Patriarch is a really good one right there. So I'd say basically starting there. And you don't have to have Genestealers. Genestealers are actually just okay in a Genestealer cult. They're better in Tyranids. But yeah, and the nice thing about Crusade is that you can make up for some of the weaknesses of your army when the Crusade upgrades kick in. And also, it doesn't matter if you lose more games than you win because you still get to upgrade your guys and have all this kind of fun stuff. So I'd say like Acolytes, the Acolyte hybrids, the Patriarch as an HQ, he's probably your best HQ. He's also the most costly. The Primus is okay. The Magus is fine. The Acolyte Icon Ward is your go-to like cheap one, but who can still be kind of effective. And then your hybrid, your metamorphs as well, the elite choice, they're good. Jackals are great because they're fast and they're not expensive and they can help you get objectives. And once upgraded, they can actually be really good as well. Yeah, I'd say that's a starting point. That's what I can say right here. What are your tips on the play style? Like, you have to accept the fact that you can't just go head on in these fights. They're too squishy. Toughness 3, 5-up saves on the majority of your army makes it really hard for them to be able to survive very long. And so you have to make sure that you're the one dictating the fights. And so, popping up in the right spots, keeping in cover, make sure you're out of sight from any major shooting, make sure you're the charger, not the chargee, as much as you can. And really utilizing, like your ambush markers to the highest possible extent to really throw off your opponent and how they're going to deploy. That's the big thing there. Thanks again for your time and all the great effort you guys put into mini wargaming. Well, thank you, Kurt is the word, or Curtis the word. Thomps 4991, or maybe it's T Homps. I never know if these are names. Matthew, congratulations on the new kit. I can't wait to see the new campaign you have done a Scary with the Marines and the Nids, as it looks like it will be a great campaign. Yeah, that should probably be the next one. I'm filming this today on Thursday, which is the first day of Dave's campaign, the Expendables 40K campaign, which is a lot of fun, so you check that out, please. And so I know that Scary's been working with Brandon, our video editor, on getting the necessary B-roll shots. Like, we filmed it a long time ago, but you have to do all the extra stuff, and Scary was busy through the summer. And it didn't matter because we had other campaigns to go anyways. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it too. It looks like it'll be a great campaign. I love the banter you have with the colleagues during the campaigns. Keep up the great work. Flavie thought. Matthew, how goes your quest to make a full Sister of Battle squad in real life? Well, now I have 4 daughters. So we're done though. I have 1 son and four daughters, but yeah, we're done having kids. And whether we like it or not, we are done unless we adopt. We can put 2 and 2 together and figure out all the things. I'm not going to go into all the details. Let's just say that we're getting old and things have been done. Well, now people are going to think the wrong thing. It was things that had to be removed from Holly. Her uterus was removed. But yeah, and so we have no choice but to be done having kids biologically, and I don't think we have any plans to adopt. So 5 is good. So no, we're not going to make a real full squad. There's just going to be the 4 girls and then the 1 boy. So, sorry. We still have, that's still a D&D group though, right? So that's great. Second, what's a classic D&D monster you'd like to see get a 40K variant? Okay. There's lots of classic D&D monsters, but a lot of them already have become... See, D&D's been around for so long that it's almost like... I was just talking to Dave about this, that it's almost like the vanilla fantasy now. And that's not a bad thing. It just means that it's like the original. And I know it's not the original fantasy, but still, a lot of other things draw their inspiration from it, like heavily. So a lot of those monsters have already made their way in. Like, you don't get things like the Beholder is a classic D&D monster, right? The Mind Flayer is a classic D&D monster, but it's also a very Cthulhu-like thing, which of course you get in D&D already in the form of like the Enslavers. Yeah, you know what? Enslavers. I brought the Enslavers into a narrative campaign years ago, and they're a kind of deep lore 40K, a chaos thing that's not part of the 4 chaos gods. They're kind of gruesome actually how they work, but maybe making them a reality would be kind of cool. Yeah, that'd be neat. It'd be neat to kind of explore things like that. Other classic D&D monsters, see, like your classic D&D monsters, like, oh, there's so many of them. And it's hard sometimes to think of them off the top of your head because, like I said, they've become mainstream in so many other things. Like I can say dragons, those are classic. We don't really have dragons in 40K, except for like the metal one that the Chaos has. Why can't I think of what it's called? Oh wow, that's a big brain fart. The big triangle just comes in and Baleflamer and everything. He has like 6 of them. I don't know, I can't remember the name. He's had them forever. Anyways, a 40K Beholder would be kind of funny. I think that would be hilarious. So let's say that one. Wigdor, hello Matt, can you please increase the time it takes for the drop-down menus to deploy at the header of your website? Yeah, I saw this comment. I've actually gotten right back into web development, so I'll be working on the website over the next few months. So there's little things like that I'm going to be improving. Also, how much would it cost in total to change Mini Wargaming's color from green to red? Across all media, papers, logos, everything. Keep being awesome. It wouldn't be that much. It's just all digital files. And so You just update them in Photoshop and re-upload them to the site, and boom. The question is why? Why red? Why red? Why the change right there? Caddy 218. Good morning, Matthew. Congrats on the new addition to the fam. Hope mommy and baby are both well. No major question, just a big thanks. I'm really enjoying the bolt action bat reps, so thanks for adding them to the channel. Funny, we have a couple guys from Warlord Games here right now, and we've been filming more bolt action, and I've been filming some K-47, Conflict 47, which is a lot of fun, by the way. They've been doing Blood Red Skies, and so we're filming a bunch of content that'll come out over the next few months. And so you can look forward to seeing more coverage of Warlord Games stuff. And the Conquest for Blood series was awesome. It was really good fun to watch. Hope to see a sequel or prequel sometime in the future. Yes, a lot of people want to see like Archibald, see what his prequel or sequel. Prequels are hard because I don't like plot armor to keep characters alive. I like to see what happens. Even with the recent price increase, the Vault is still great value in my opinion, so keep up the great work. Happy wargaming. Thank you. We had a small price increase to the Vault recently. Because we hadn't changed it for years, and inflation eventually catches up with you. So yes, and we've had a really positive response. There's some people, of course, that aren't happy with that, but who's ever happy with a price increase? Mylin, Matthew, two things, both of them Custodes related. First, you recently commented about the High Lord of Terra in the Sisters of Battle army and how surely her time was better spent elsewhere. But did you know that Trajan Valoris, the Custodes named character, also sits among the High Lords of Terra? Yeah, I found that out afterwards. Even if he is one of the Imperium's greatest fighters, it still seems inefficient to have him running around on individual battlefields. I agree. Because when you're in a galaxy, like if you were like in a medieval setting, a powerful, super powerful king leading the front of the battle would make sense because there's only a handful of battles. But when you're fighting a galaxy-sized war, heck, one planet-sized war, I'm sorry, you're just not going to make a difference fighting from the front. In fact, if your skills are in battle and not in bureaucracy, you shouldn't be a High Lord. Sorry, you shouldn't have a say. You should be familiar with politics and logistics, when it really comes down to it, one of the big parts of successful wars in real life is logistics, right? You got to feed your troops, you got to get from point A to point B, all these different kinds of things. Logistics are a huge part of maintaining any standing force or invasion or whatever, or garrison or whatever it is that you're going to do. Which is why like sieges are a thing and all this other. And I'm not even an expert in war, and I know these things. I just don't necessarily know the intricacies. So if you are a High Lord of Terra, you're not even taking care of the bureaucracy of the battles. You're taking care of the bureaucracy, which is taking care of the bureaucracy, which is taking care of the bureaucracy. So you've got to be really good at that specific job. How to make sure these bureaucrats are doing their job in such a way that these ones are doing their job effectively, so that these ones are doing their job effectively, so you can win the war. And so when you jump from up here to the bottom, and you become basically the commander of the army, you've went down several tiers in that hierarchy, and while you might be the best commander in the galaxy, you can still, when you look at that pyramid of kind of the influence you have, if you jump down to here, your pyramid becomes way smaller. You can only affect right here. And meanwhile, if you're up here, you could have a much bigger say. If you're no good at being up here, then yeah, sure, but don't be a High Lord, because then you could come back and be like, I don't like this council's decision on this thing, and I have the authority to change it. It's like, but you shouldn't have the authority if you're no good at understanding why they're making it to begin with. So yeah, it's cool that they're in the game. And in the end, this is a fantasy game, right? It's science fiction, whatever. And so it's fun to see them on the battlefield. But yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Second, I've never been one to toss out ideas for narrative campaigns. That's okay. I got a big pile of them from a lot of people. And you know what? Sometimes I use them. Because I'm sure you have plenty, but I was just thinking it would be quite cool to see a member of the Adeptus Custodes competing in the Blood Games. I assume you're familiar with it, slightly. But the Blood Games are the military exercises of the Adeptus Custodes by which individual custodians seek to test the defenses of the Imperial Palace on Terra by penetrating its security. Custodes have even been known to release enemies of the Imperium, even Chaos Space Marines in the Imperial Palace, as part of the Blood Games, because Custodes don't often get chances to practice against these foes. That's kind of interesting, actually. I will add it to the list of ideas. Tom RX50. Firstly, congratulations on your new addition to the family. It's an amazing feeling bringing new life into the world. It is. Secondly, my question. A few weeks back, I asked Josh about getting into the hobby, but not having time. Well, I found time to join a club, and I've got about 5 games of a 9th edition under my belt now. The thing is, I find it rather fun building lists, not competitive, but fun. This is something I didn't think I'd really enjoy much, but alas I do. So my question to you is, what is something about Warhammer that you enjoy, but your past self would have thought you wouldn't? I think I actually already answered that. So that is a good question, and I answered it when the first person's comment, even though they didn't ask that question. For me, it was realizing that I didn't like the competitive aspect of it, and I really enjoyed more the narrative aspect and running campaigns and stuff. Straight Jacket, Matthew, blah, blah, blah. Dave been working on his own minigame. You, any interest or ideas in your own minigame, or really any game? Or really any game? Do I have interest in any game? I have interest in lots of games. This is my job, man. Do I have interest in making my own minigame? Yes and no. I have interest in mini wargaming, making them. Not always me, though. Demon Arrows. Hi, Matt. Sorry for the second question. Is there any interest in Frostgrave in mini wargaming? I know I'm interested in Frostgrave. And probably some other people would be too. We just haven't had a chance to really bring it in. Like, we're only now starting to experiment with trying. Well, not only now. We've played other games since the beginning of mini wargaming, but yeah, we're trying to figure out how we can bring in. Not because we don't like Games Workshop. I know there's been a lot of hubbub about that. So this is not like we hate Games Workshop, so let's cover other games. It's like, whatever. This is Games Workshop. They're a big company. They're going to get hate, and there might even things that we don't like. It's plenty. But no, we want to just diversify to other games because we want to play other games too. We want these games to be supported. So we're trying that out. You can see us doing that with the Warlord games, and we'll be kind of experimenting with that over the next while to see if we can make it work. The tough thing is, because they don't have existing huge audiences like 40K and AOS do, we've got to kind of flip it on its head. So we built mini wargaming because 40K and fantasy back then and Age of Sigmar later on had existing audiences. So by making content for those audiences, they came to us. But these other ones don't have big existing audiences. So the idea is now to take our brand and help to build those audiences, but we have to make the videos different. We have to approach them differently so they're interesting to somebody who's never played the game. Whereas most of our videos are interesting to people who are already into the game, even though they might be beginner friendly and all that kind of stuff. It's more like you've already heard of 40K, so you find us. It's probably more common that we get people more into the game or back into the game than somebody has never heard of 40K, stumbles on our videos, and then watches it. Like, our videos only get tens of thousands of views, right? And so that's not likely to go viral in the YouTube algorithm. Now, the ones that get hundreds of thousands or millions of views are the ones that will pick up random people. And I know we do get random viewers on our videos because that's just how YouTube works. But I still think it was going to be the lion's share of them is going to be people who already know about the IP. And so now it's about taking that existing audience and showing them other IP as well, but in such a way that they want to watch that content and it's profitable for us and the companies that we're doing it for. That's the big riddle that I need to solve. Also from Demon Arrows, I'm at my friends and I are going to start playing D&D soon. We're all beginners. Do you have any things to avoid you've picked up? And definitely don't. Thanks and congrats. Well, my suggestion is it's not so much avoid, because you can do whatever you want. If your DM really wants to get into homebrewing, then homebrew. But my big suggestion is start with the starter set, the Lost Mines of Phandelver. It's a fantastically designed adventure, first off. But it also is a good introduction to D&D. Because you can even use, whether or not you use the pre-generated characters in there or you make your own, it's really well written for the Dungeon Master. It introduces a lot of aspects of D&D, from exploration to the social to the combat, really quickly, and it gets you right into it. So that's my biggest thing. If you're all brand new to it, including the DM, buy the starter set, The Lost Mines of Phandelver, and run that adventure. It's really well done. That's my biggest thing. Other than that, it's really just always have a session 0, which is the session where you all sit down and lay out expectations. That's really important to do. So like if somebody's uncomfortable with certain aspects, or if somebody's like, I want to min-max the heck out of a character, and everybody else is like, we don't really want to play that way, or to decide what your characters are going to be, or for the DM, or to decide who's bringing snacks, or how you're going to pay for stuff, or how often you're going to meet, all that kind of stuff. Make sure you have one of those sessions so that all the expectations are laid out. Benel, Matthew, could there be some kind of way that we, the audience, can impact the narrative campaigns? Maybe democratically decide where to go next or where points are to spend. I've had this idea for a while that people have asked that. It would be a little more difficult logistically because typically we film the narrative campaigns and then they go out, or at least they're partially filmed by the time they go out. So we would need to have that time between episode going out, gathering feedback, filming the next one. So it wouldn't be able to be your typical weekly release kind of thing. But I have been thinking about doing that for Vault members, having like a Vault-specific narrative campaign, like a big event, where it comes out every 2 weeks or something, or maybe even once a month, giving Vault members a chance to, even the simplest thing like that. Like it's like, okay, here is a multiple choice. What's the choice that he's going to do? And or so that the player of the campaign still feels like he has choice. You could be more like choosing the bad thing that's going to happen, or where does the enemy go, or what does the enemy do, or where does the next army rise up on the map, or things like that, or some random encounter that's going to happen, or whatever happens to be. So I have been thinking about that. So I want to try to make that happen. I don't know when that's going to happen though, but it could be fun. Mowgli. Sorry, I got my timer on and I got to check it. Okay, we got lots of time. Mowgli. Matthew, congratulations to your SO and you. Oh, significant other. I'm like, SO. And you on the latest addition to your family. Question, what is Dave up to? Have not seen him in a while except for Sit and Talks. Well, he's got the new campaign that's coming out. That's what he's been filming a while for the past few weeks. Any chances of a Dave versus Matthew bat rep? Beat Matt bat rep? Or a banter bat rep? For good old time's sake, I just love the dynamic between you two. Not really. No, we're not interested in really doing that. But what you might see soon, we're planning on doing a campaign where I am the GM and he's one of the players. And so you'll see that there as well. Keep up the amazing work you and the mini wargaming team put out regularly. Well, thank you. Miso, Matt, missed you, man. Congratulations. For number one, Matt, 5 children. 5? Do you have to pay college fees in Canada? We do, actually. You will need more Vault memberships. Yes, please. Sign up for the Vault to feed my 5 kids. 2, with such a big family, do you have adequate time to develop the business or do other creative endeavors? Well, I have to, right? In the end, family is what matters. Mini wargaming is how I feed my family. I love mini wargaming. I love that I get to do this for my career. But in the end, this can't interfere with my family because the whole point of this is to support my family. So does it interfere? Does having 5 kids interfere? Absolutely. If I didn't have kids or had less kids, probably more if I didn't have any kids, then I could work longer. I could not, I could put more money into the company and spend more time traveling to meet people and to build relationships with companies and all of that. Definitely. If somebody works 80 hours a week smartly, they're most likely going to be able to accomplish more than somebody working 40 hours a week or 30 hours a week. That's roughly where I am in 30 to 40 hours a week. Definitely. But in the end, so what? If in the end I'm just making tons of money, like I'm eventually going to die. Everybody's going to die. If I became a millionaire, a billionaire or not, that has very little influence on my happiness, right? To me, it's all about my family, and it's about my kids, my wife, my parents, my siblings, all that. That's the important thing. And so this business exists to support them, to feed them. And so, yeah, that's why a business mindset, in the end, this mini wargaming has to make money. And I remember early on, people would be upset when I'd say that. Oh, you should do this because you love it. It's like, no, you shouldn't do your work because you love it. You should do your work because you need to eat. And then hopefully you love your work. And if you don't, you need to become passionate about your work, even if it's something that you wouldn't normally be passionate. You need to become very good. You need to be the best at whatever it is you're going to do, even if you didn't start off liking what you did. And if you just can't do that, then you need to look for another career, obviously. But that doesn't mean you need to find a career which best suits you. You need to put yourself, your all into whatever career it is that you're going to be doing. So yeah, there's things I'm giving up 100,000% by having a family, especially as large as mine. But this is why I'm doing this, so I can. That's the purpose. So it's the other way around. It's not so much that the family is keeping me away from work. It's the work allows me to have my family. That's the way I see it. It's the priorities. Is it worth? So continuing that question, is it worth it for you to write a book, for example, or would that take too much energy? Maybe, I don't know. Could you stop playing D&D to free up more time? Absolutely. That would give me an extra couple evenings a week because there's the evening of playing and the evening of prep usually. But D&D is what I do with my wife is one of the players, and so it's one of the few things we get to do together on our own. So that helps us in our relationship, and it's also something I love to do, and you need that in your life as well. Not that I don't love mini wargaming, which I do, but it's work. It's something I have to do every day. Where D&D is something it's been brought up so many times. You should film the D&D session. You should, bring it as one of the shows. And I'm like, no, I don't want to. I want something that's just low pressure. I just do it the way I want to. I don't have to worry about it being the highest production value. I can stand up and walk over and get snacks. We don't have to have the best lighting. If I just feel like scribbling down on a quick mat on a game mat, I can do that. And you might think, well, you could still do it as a show, but I don't want to. I don't want to have that. It's just something that's mine, and it's just for fun, and that's nice to have. Is family life at home very organized and regimented with mealtimes and weekend activities? I wish it was. School helps, obviously, to regiment, but it's crazy. It's crazy chaos, and it's really hard. I can't say that I love it all the time because it's usually more often hard than it is easy, but I think it's worth it. Number 3 from Miso on Mormonism. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, otherwise known as Mormons. Is it true that you have to pay to go on a mission? Has the cost got more expensive, and do both girls and boys go on one? Yeah, you totally are supposed to pay your own way. For those not familiar, in our church, when you're, depending on school and stuff, usually between the ages of 18 and 20 something, young 20s, you give up a year and a half to 2 years of your life to go and go on a proselyting mission, which is, I don't know, old school, you'd think like door to door, people coming and talking to you about the church. It's become a lot more than that, obviously, with social media and a lot of other things too. But yeah, you do pay your own way. Now, if you can't afford to pay your own way, there's church programs to help pay. So it's not like you can't go if you can't pay. But yeah, the way they do it is they average the cost for the entire world, and then you pay the average. So no matter where you go, whether it's one that would be more expensive or one that goes cheaper, everybody pays the same amount. And then they just kind of divvy it up amongst everybody. So, and yes, boys and girls can go. And are encouraged to, big time. It's a great experience. I went to Tahiti in the South Polynesian Islands. You don't choose where you go. You just submit your papers and they decide where you go. And it was awesome. I got to live in Tahiti for a couple of years. So forgetting anything of the religious side of things for a second, that was a cool experience. I got to learn French, got to learn Tahitian. Hiato ehuru, mea maitai. And no, I'm no good at it anymore. It's been like 20 years almost since I've come home from there. So even my French is pretty much gone. I got a job where I used my French for a few years, but I haven't used it now for like 15 years. So it's gone. It's rusty. Like I can maybe passably get by. But yeah, the culture was awesome. The food was great. Meeting the people. What a different lifestyle it is over there too. So it was fantastic. But some people, just go some people from here will go to Calgary or to Quebec or to the States somewhere, or to England, or to Japan, or, obviously COVID made a lot of that not as possible, but that's the typical kind of thing. For Mini Wargaming, so we got a couple, does Mini Wargaming have a Discord? If not, why not? We've been talking about that, so not yet. 2, now that the pandemic is over, it's not, but I get what you're saying. Are there any further big expansions you could see Mini Wargaming doing? I know this has been talked about before, but would you ever look into creating your own game and miniatures again? Yes and yes. More on that maybe in the next few months. Books. Do you ever make an effort to read books outside of the fantasy sci-fi genre? And if so, do you have any recommendations? I haven't in the past year made any effort to read any novels. All my reading time has been in D&D prep or in 40K and AOS prep for campaigns. So I'd still read a ton, but it's more not novels. It's more like source books or wikis or things like that. As for genres, though, I've spoken about that already in this video. Fantasy and sci-fi are my favorite genres, but let's see, what books have I really enjoyed that are not those? I don't know. They're all fantasy and sci-fi, I think. I'm trying to think of what non-fiction books are not fantasy and sci-fi, are just like the Tom Clancy books or something like that. I think I've read some, but the vast majority of books that I've read over my life have been science fiction and fantasy. I asked as I've been pushing myself to read different kinds of books, like a Tom Clancy, which was Brill, and it's really great. Helps expand the mind, I feel. Yeah, for sure, reading is great. Best dude, and much love. Thank you, Miso. The KT. Hey, Matthew, congratulations to you and the missus on the new addition to your family. You guys do know what's causing that, correct? I figured it out finally. It's like that's what did it? Oh, okay, whoops. Are there plans to put your live stream episodes onto the website instead of just being on YouTube? The live stream stuff is all new, so there's plenty of plans for that stuff to improve it. So yeah. I like having all my Mini Wargaming content in one place. Thanks, and keep up all the great work. Yeah, that's an obvious, simple thing that we should be doing, but we're just getting into that, so there's a lot of things to iron out. The Danish Viking, Alex, Matt. Congrats on being a father for the 5th time. Have you named your baby yet? Oh yeah, we had our name for her before she was even born. Her name is Iris, like the flower. 2 questions. 1, in your previous sit and talks, you have talked about that you look at views and vault signups when you evaluate if, for example, a campaign has done well. I'm wondering, how long do you evaluate views after a video has been released? I'm asking because when I watch your narrative campaigns, I usually wait until all episodes are out so I can binge watch it on one weekend where I will paint. I am planning on watching the Conquest of Blood campaign next weekend. Will those views still count when you evaluate, or have you already moved on? It depends. It's all about correlations, right? It's not about hard numbers. It's not like, did this video get 10,000 views? It's more about, did it get a proportionate number according to what we normally get? So if you always watch videos after the fact, then maybe we wouldn't look at those numbers, but I'm not saying we wouldn't, because sometimes I'll do like an evaluation of the months or the content from the past few months. And then in which case, yeah, those late views still would count because they're on there. But I've tried looking at it from so many different angles. Like some people are like, well, if you only look at the Vault signups and not the fact that I watched it, because I'm already a Vault member, so if I watch it, I want that to count. And the thing is, I'm like, yeah, you're absolutely right. I should correlate both of those. But then I found that they were proportionate, usually. With some rare exceptions, they were proportionate. In other words, what I mean by that is that if a campaign was put out and it did poorly for getting Vault signups, it usually also did poorly for getting Vault members to watch it. And if you think about it, it makes sense. Because you have to sell content to both existing viewers and new viewers, existing Vault members and people who are not yet Vault members. Because if it looks interesting, it'll pull people in and it will get existing members to watch. Does that make sense? Like, you think about it that way, like, then it doesn't matter which one we look at. We can look at Vault signups or we can look at the views the videos got in the Vault. They're going to correlate. So often we don't have to deep dive into it. I've done all sorts of multivariate testing of analytics and going through it all because I'm a numbers guy that way. And I found that no matter how hard I looked, in the end, it was a pretty simple analysis. How many people signed up to the Vault compared to how many normally sign up to the Vault when we released the campaign. And that usually was your indicator of how well received it was. Yeah, and that's basically it. Now, that's not to say that's the only thing we look at, but it's a quick statistic that we can look at and say, yes, that one did well, that one didn't do as well, because we find that when you dig deeper, it rarely would vary from that. There was only a very few campaigns that didn't do well for Vault signups, but did tremendously well for people watching in the Vault. I think of like the Death Watch, not Death Watch, the Orc Death Watch one was one of those I can think of, because I was very disappointed in how few Vault signups it got. But then I looked in the back end and it got an unusually high number of Vault views. But that is an exception rather than the rule. The majority of the time, you don't have to look at it. So your views that come later, you might think, well, I want them to count towards it, but it's not about a hard number of views. It's not like, oh, we didn't reach that threshold, because if you're always watching them afterwards, then there's not, the comparison wise, it doesn't make a difference. So, that's what we're looking at. No data in a vacuum tells you anything. If I said that costs $10,000, is that expensive? And you're like, you would ask the question, well, what is that, right? Because $10,000, if I said it's a mansion, you'd be like, well, that's cheap. If I said it is a hamburger, then you'd be like, well, that's expensive, because you're able to compare that hamburgers typically cost $1 and mansions typically cost millions of dollars. So all statistical data has to be done in comparisons. And so, and I still get that you still want to look at different things of it, but in the end, I find that those all correlate. And so I don't need to deep dive into them all the time. Every once in a while I will, but for the most part, I can look at the superficial. How did it do for Vault signups? And I can usually leave it at that. And I only dig deeper if I'm like, this is unusual data. So let's see if we can find out why it's unusual. Hope that makes sense. Number 2, Kill Team was just released, and I have had a few games. Some of those mechanics would be really awesome in your narrative campaigns. Have you had time to look at it? If not, then I would recommend you do it. Once again, Dave and I were just talking about this today. I've said like my Deathwatch campaigns technically would be better as Kill Team mechanically than as regular Warhammer 40k. That I just modify to work. And it's funny because I'm almost certain that if I released it as a Deathwatch Kill Team campaign, it wouldn't do as well. Because there's a smaller market for Kill Team, and so people see Kill Team and they're like, I'm not interested in that. And so you'd have to market it differently. So even if the rules are good, it's not always about that. In fact, it's rarely about that. Just a little hint there. It's rarely about the rules. It's about the story. And so you got to get the name recognition to get them in there, and then the story just lets them enjoy it anyways. So yeah, I would consider Kill Team campaigns for sure, but I would almost expect them to be harder to market and harder to get to do as well, because it's not as popular as Warhammer 40k, just the regular game, of course. And again, congrats to the baby. Happy wargaming. Thank you. Torlicris, I don't know how to say that. Have you or any other team subscribed to Warhammer Plus? Yes, I did. I did when it first came out. If so, what are the overall first impressions? I have, and I'm a little disappointed with the lack of content, but hopefully it'll pick up. I'll be honest, I haven't really done a deep dive on it. I quickly watched one of the battle reports because that's what I was most curious of. What was going to be their format? And I found that it was well done, but nothing that was earth-shatteringly new. Just, it's just their typical level of put more money into it and make it more polished, which is great and all. But I've seen like similar kind of things from Play on Tabletop, other companies that will. We don't spend a lot of time on the post-production of our battle reports. We don't have multiple cameras set up. There's reasons for that. And we understand that. And so you get like Play on Tabletop, who just like put out fantastically well-produced battle reports. And but it takes a lot longer to make those and a lot more money. And so, but is that worth it? Who knows? Warhammer Plus, of course, is going to want to do that as well because they're not just selling Warhammer Plus, they're also trying to sell the game. So they got to give it the highest quality experience possible. But I haven't really looked at everything else, and I haven't had time, so I don't have much of an opinion about that. Be sure it. Matthew, I've heard you guys say many times that you track what a Vault video sign-up is from to gauge the viability of certain types of content. Oh, so a similar question. Do you only judge that based on new sign-ups? Is this the same person? No. I would feel like I have the exact same content question. Do you only judge based on new signups, or do you also track what Vault videos are watched per person in order to see if they're, but only watch a sliver of the more niche content? Yeah, okay, I've already talked about that. Oh, that was the last question. I thought I had another paper, but it was blank. The printer decided to print off a blank paper. So I'm just trying to see if there's something I can add to that, because you say here, share it. For example, there may be a group of people who predominantly watch Horus Heresy or bolt action content in the Vault and not much else. So even if that content wasn't a huge driver of new users, its absence might cause a subscriber loss. True, but there wouldn't be a lot of them. I'm not trying to say we don't want to take care of our Horus Heresy and bolt action ones. I'm just trying to say that it goes both ways. If it didn't get a lot of people to sign up, then there aren't a lot of people in there who care about it, right? Does that make sense? I think part of that has to do with the fact that the bolt action Horus Heresy have less players, but I think it's also to do with the fact that if you go to sign up to the Vault and you see that 90% of it is not the games you care about, you're going to see less value in that. Now, unless we go to the extreme like Netflix, where there's like, you can't look at Netflix and be like, well, I don't watch 99% of the stuff in there, so it's not worth the value. It's like, no, you see that what little you do watch easily adds up to the value. And if it doesn't, then you cancel, right? You don't expect the majority of the content to be something you like. But we're nowhere near that size in the library of content. And so it's much more niche. And so that makes it more difficult to expand it to different kinds of content because let me just put it this way. It's hilarious how predictable the results of certain comments can be. For example, if we decided to start putting out bolt action battle reports on a weekly basis, and we did nothing else different, everything else is the same, I guarantee you'd see comments or emails of people canceling their Vault memberships. Somebody in there, a bunch of people in there will say, I wish you did as much 40K as you used to. Because I signed up for the 40K content, and you don't do as much of it anymore. And in fact, sometimes we've increased it, but we've never decreased it when this happens. We've just added something else. And so the perception is we're doing less of it, but we're doing the same amount. And sometimes we've even increased it. Let's add a second 40K day. I remember we added a second 40K day, but we also at the same time added some other stuff. And we got comments, not a lot of them, mind you. I know most people can tell, but we still got comments saying, oh man, you're not doing as much 40K as you used to. And it's like, well, actually we're doing twice as much as we used to. It's just, we're also doing other stuff. So there's that constant battle of reality versus perception that we as a company have to do. How do you market it? And so the more non-Games Workshop stuff we put in the Vault, I know we're going to get comments being like, well, I'm here for the 40K stuff, so I'm going to take off because you guys don't do enough 40K because you're putting your efforts into that and you could just be making more 40K. That kind of stuff. And then at the same time, if we don't put bolt action or Horus Heresy or stuff like that, then there's those people who are like, well, that's why I signed up for the Vault, so I guess I'm going to cancel now. And so you have to find the thing, obviously, that pleases the most people. You can't please everybody, because that's what we got to do. We have to have the most customers. And so that's the trick, is creating content and covering things in such a way that you get the most customers. And because in the end, we need that money to support the business, to hire more people, to feed 5 kids, all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of thought that goes into these things, though. I might sometimes say things to make it sound simplistic. And in the end, it might be simplistic, but there's still a lot more than just what I'm saying here. There's a lot of number crunching that goes on over and over again, and I come to certain conclusions. But since you guys didn't take the ride that I took to see how I come to that conclusion, you might be like, well, why not this? It's like, well, okay, sorry, I didn't tell you all the hours and hours and hours and hours of data compilation and analytics that I did to come to that conclusion. And that, yeah, that came up and we found this, and that came up and we found this, and that came up and we found this, and just jumping right to the conclusion. So, but that's why these sit and talks are great, because then you can ask these questions and I can elaborate on the areas that you may not have considered. Or maybe you have just a legitimately good idea that I never thought of, and so I take that and go back with it too. And that has come up many times during the sit and talks as well. Well, I hope that you enjoyed that. Thank you so much for your questions. Don't forget that next week is Josh, so you can leave the questions for him in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you go check out Dave's new narrative campaign for the Expendables, because it was a lot of fun and it's pretty crazy awesome. So go check that out. If you want to get the whole campaign for free, actually, you can go to miniwargaming.com/action and sign up for a Vault membership there. If you're already a Vault member, well, then just go watch it. You're going to enjoy it anyways. And even if you cancel your Vault membership, if you sign up through miniwargaming.com/action, you can get the whole narrative campaign for free. So enjoy that. Thanks for watching. Happy wargaming!